You know, many aspire to it, some acquire it, and some, they're just born to it. For Richard Lee Skaggs of Cordell, Kentucky, that first hands-on encounter with that mandolin when he was 5 years old kind of cemented his fate as one of the greats in bluegrass and country music. Coming up on Kentucky Outlook, we're going to have a conversation with Ricky Skaggs. Stay with us. Welcome to this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb, and I'm pleased to have with us Ricky Skaggs. And it's Ricky Lee Skaggs, not Richard Lee Skaggs.
Right. I was named after Ricky Ricardo. Can you believe that?
Oh, anybody ever call you Cardo?
No.
Okay.
They call me Babaloo, though, sometimes.
Okay, Babaloo. There used to be a Big Daddy Babaloo.
Yeah.
He used to do radio in these parts.
Yeah.
Quite famous. So when I'm reading that introduction and I say the legendary Ricky Skaggs, how does that feel?
That was my dad. That was my dad.
That was your dad.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to achieve legendary status. I don't think so anyway. A lot of young kids think I'm a legend now. Man, you're a legend, man, Mr. Skaggs. Great to meet you, man. You're a legend. You know, it's sweet, but I'm just country boy.
Country boy, country boy. You talk about your dad.
Yeah.
And he meant a lot to you. Hobart was his
He
name.
was the best. He was so sweet and such a gentleman, such a godly man, you know. And he was really the one that he and my mom both should thank more than anybody, I think, in this world, certainly. Dad recognized the talent in me very young in my life, probably 3 or 4 years old. I was singing with my mom, and I was singing the part.
They were musically inclined?
Well, in church and in little civic things, little country things around home, and they sang together, you know, at home. And I would hear Mom sing in harmony to Dad as a little child, and then when Dad was working and Mom was home singing, I'd be in the other room playing with my toys, and I'd find a line, find a harmony part, and just sing it above her. And so she got to, you know, she told Dad, she said, he's in there singing harmony, you know, when he'd come home from work. And then, so my dad, I think, made one of those interval kind of things, because he had a brother, Earl Scruggs. I tell about this in the book, but my dad had a brother, and he played mandolin and sang tenor with my dad. My dad played guitar and sang lead. And Earl got killed in Guam, World War II. And it devastated my dad, you know, just broke his heart and never got over it, you know, kind of thing. But he kind of said if he ever had a son that showed any kind of, you know, musical abilities, he was going to buy him a mandolin, and hopefully he would sing tenor with him. And so that was me. You know, at 5 years old, I wake up one morning, and Dad has come home from work. He was a welder. And so he must have come in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, from driving all night to get home. And I wake up, and here's a little teeny mandolin, a little half-pint size model, laying in my bed. And I grab hold of it, and it's the first time I felt wood and steel together, you know, with those strings and the wooden neck. And I haven't forgotten that feel, because I do that about every day. I play something, you know. And but that really started my life in music, was that mandolin and my singing. And I got to play with Bill Monroe when I was 6 years old.
Yeah, wait a minute, we got to go. So, okay, you got this mandolin, so then what? I mean, how do you just started plucking at it and deciding maybe this sounds like music? How's that go?
Well, Dad showed me 3 chords, G, C, and D, the basic little male bass chords, you know. And that's about all he knew on the mandolin. He played guitar, and so he got snowed in at a job for two weeks and couldn't get home. After he showed me those chords, he came back home 2 weeks later, and I'm changing chords and singing at the same time, and he just, you know, gets all excited and goes and buys a guitar, because my dad had loaned the family guitar out to a friend, and he just really wasn't playing much anymore, you know. And but I guess, you know, with my newly discovered talent and my love for music, it fired him up, and we started singing and playing together again as a family, you know.
Now, you say talent, but it's almost more like a gift.
It is a gift. It absolutely is a gift, and God is the gift giver. You know, I believe that in my heart, and I think that music was created by God for Him, for God. And I think when we realize that, many times people live a long, long life and play music and never realize that that's what music was given to us for, was to give it back to Him. And I think when we realize that, you know, and especially when we do it in a way that honors Him, but yet blesses the other people that hear it, you know, it's a wonderful thing. It's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to touch people. We're kind of a conduit back, you know, back to Him. So
Giving it right
I
back.
love that. Yeah.
I do too. I love that
Yeah.
story. So you're 5 years old, Bill Monroe, you know, and I have had the distinct honor and pleasure in my lifetime to meet and interview Bill
Yeah.
Monroe, and I feel very privileged in that regard because he was such a humble man. That's what I took away from that, a really humble guy. But you're 5 years old, your family's really seeing that this kid's got talent. He's in the next town, or he's coming to town?
Yeah, he's coming to a little town called Martha, Kentucky, just up the road from Blaine and Cordell. And so we go and see him, you know, and I had just turned 6. And so I'd been playing mandolin at church and playing at Butler's grocery store, you know, there in Blaine.
You're like the thing, right?
Yeah,
Everybody says, you
yeah.
should hear this kid play.
Yeah. So I became the you know, Hobart and Dorothy's little boy. That's what it was, really. It was more than anything. So after about 30 minutes in Mr. Monroe's show, the neighbors in the hood started, let little Ricky Skaggs get up there and sing one, you know. And so he just kind of sloughed it off and went into another song, you know. And after a while, you know, here it come again. So after a few times from the neighbors, I think he was ready to get it over with and get back to the show.
Because
you
otherwise
know.
they're going to throw tomatoes,
Yeah,
right?
so rotten ones.
Yeah.
So those homegrown tomatoes, though, those are worth throwing and catching.
Those are
I'm telling
good
you.
stuff,
And
yeah.
anyway, he finally said, "Well, get little Ricky Skaggs on up here. Where are you, boy?" And so here I come walking up on the stage, or walking up the front, and he reaches down and grabs me and pulls me up on the stage. You know, that's why one of my arms is longer than the other. And
Still play that.
but he asked me what I played, and I told him I played the mandolin, and well, he took his big mandolin off, which was about this big,
Probably
you
about
know.
as big as you were.
Yeah, well, it was the size of a guitar for me, for a little 6-year-old frame. And so anyway, he puts it on me, and I sang a song called "Ruby, Are You Mad at Your Man?" A great 6-year-old song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but it was either that one or the pinball machine, and Mother said, "Don't you sing that pinball song if you get up there," you know. So I knew not to sing that song, but anyway, everybody knew the song, the band knew it, and so we hit an E chord, and away we went. And we started started together and ended together, so no casualties on the way.
Wow.
And but that night, I fell in love with Bill Monroe. I fell in love with the man that I fell in love with the passion that he had for the music. He loved the music, but he also was a man that was willing to give up a little bit of his stardom so a little 6-year-old kid could go out front and share the spotlight for a minute, you know. And so it was really a defining moment. You know, you hear that word, defining moment,
Yeah.
you know. And that was a defining moment. And at 6 years old, a defining moment, you think, good Lord, what else is coming, you know. So the next year I meet Lester, Flatt, and Earl Scruggs, do their television show, and you can find that on YouTube if you want to type in Ricky Skaggs and Lester, Flatt, and Earl Scruggs. There I am at
There you are.
7 years old with a Vacation Bible School haircut, you know.
You
very
have some
short.
good haircuts through the years. We were talking
And,
about that before, yeah.
So that was, you know, that was my upbringing. I mean, there's Bill Monroe at 6, Flatt and Scruggs at 7, and then the Stanley Brothers. Before I was 9 years old, I'd met the Stanley Brothers and got to play with them. And those three groups, really, if you go back in history and look at bluegrass, those three groups really defined and really what I would consider created the styles of bluegrass, because they were all three a little different, but they all fed off of Mr. Monroe because he was the one that did it first, you know.
He's
and,
the man.
Yes,
He's the
he
father.
was.
We're going to talk
Absolutely.
more about that, and then some amazing individuals that you've worked with and been associated with over the years, and then your book. We're going to talk more about that with Ricky Skaggs when Kentucky Outlook continues. Stay with us. Kentucky Outlook continues. Ricky Skaggs is joining us in the studio. You know, before the break, if you weren't with us, you heard an incredible story of a young man who was given a mandolin at the age of 5 from his daddy in Cordell, Kentucky, and just had a natural gift, a God-given talent. And instead of just letting that go to the wayside, you worked it. I mean, it was just a part of who you are. So here you are, 6, 7, I mean, you're with the greats. Then we get into your teen years, and were you still able to go to school, or were you playing all the time?
No, I was still in school.
Okay.
You know, I still went to school, and I always went to public school. Mom and Dad didn't have enough money to I mean, we didn't even know what private schools were, or Christian schools back in those days. So I went to public school and you know, take my mandolin or my fiddle, whatever I was playing, you know, at that time, the banjo, and I'd take it to school with me, and it was cool to do that, you know. I mean, that was back in the days when kids could, you know, go to school with a .22 rifle or a shotgun in their back, you know, back.
Nothing malicious intended.
Nothing,
yeah.
Hey, I'm going to go hunting on the way home.
Yeah.
Just take the gun with me. You know, it's no big deal. You know, it's not like that anymore. But
well, and I want to talk about the changing face. Those were the days. So Bill Monroe really made an impression on you.
Yes, he did.
And did you know, when you think back to this, because you were talking before the break about how we defined bluegrass, you know, and it's kind of a metamorphosis of a lot of different things, and yet it was all about Bill Monroe, he started that, the father of bluegrass. Did you know that you were playing bluegrass, or were you just playing music?
You know, it's really funny. It's a great question, because a lot of people define bluegrass as something that it's really not. I mean, case in point, the soundtrack to the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" soundtrack. They call that a bluegrass soundtrack. That is not bluegrass music. That predated bluegrass at least 25, 30 years. That is old-time folk, old-time mountain music, you know, blues music. Bluegrass really didn't start till 1946, when Bill Monroe came to the Grand Ole Opry in 1939, but he was not playing bluegrass. He was playing music that he was, you know, it was kind of like string band country music, you know. I feel like he tried a lot of different sounds. He even had an accordion player in the band for a while, you know, trying to find a sound that kind of was unique to him. And he hired Lester Flatt in 1945, and Lester and Bill started really working on their duet, and they really had a great sounding duet. Because see, Charlie and Bill Monroe, the brothers, they had an amazing duet from 1936 to 1939 or 38. I think they did 3 years there that they recorded for the Bluebird label on RCA. Lots of 78s. They sold a bunch of 78s around the country. And then they split up, and Bill came to the Grand Ole Opry in 1939 and put together a band, but didn't really create a real unique sound until he hired Lester Flatt in 1945. And then String Bean, David Ackerman, who was a Kentuckian, was the Kentucky Wonder, the String Bean. He was a comedian, played banjo with Mr. Monroe, but he didn't play the three-fingered style. He played more old-time clawhammer style, or he also played with just a thumb and one finger. So it was more old-timey sounding, you know, than I think what Mr. Monroe was looking for. And so when he left, they needed to replace, you know, a banjo player in the band. And this young kid, 21 years old, no one had really ever heard of him, was playing in a band called Lost John and the Allied Kentuckians.
Oh my gosh.
In Nashville.
Try to say that 5 times.
And Lost John didn't have a very good band, but they had an incredible banjo player. And it was, like I said, a young kid that nobody knew, Earl Scruggs. And so Bill hired him on the spot, heard him play, and hired him on the spot. And so it was Bill Monroe, Lester Flatt, Earl Scruggs, Chubby Wise, the fiddle player, and Howard Watts on the bass. That was the 5 guys that really created this sound that we know today as bluegrass. But they weren't calling it bluegrass back then. So to answer your question, no, it was not. I didn't know it as bluegrass back then, because they really hadn't given it that name, bluegrass. They later on, a guy named Ralph Rensler from Washington D.C. He really gave Bill Monroe the name bluegrass music, because Bill's band was called the Bluegrass Boys, and of course bluegrass is the bluegrass state of Kentucky. And so people just kind of started calling it bluegrass music, you know.
Yes, bluegrass it is. Now, and then to hear what you just said, to tell that story, and then hear that in the 80s you fast forward, and music that you're making with the Country Gentleman is dubbed some of the most wonderful, poignant, amazing bluegrass ever made.
Well, it was really it was kind of a blend of folk and you know, the Country Gentleman was always a real cutting edge kind of bluegrass group from Washington D.C. You know, and so they had elements of folk music, but they still loved Mr. Monroe and they loved the Stanley Brothers, and I worked actually after I left the Country Gentleman. I come back to Lexington and started working with J.D. Crowe and Tony Rice, a group called the New South, and that was a very incredibly influential band. We only did one CD, well, one album. It was before CDs. We did one project called the New South, and that was a real landmark record for bluegrass music, and it inspired a lot of young musicians like Alison Krauss and, of course, the Lonesome River Band, Third Time Out, Doyle Lawson's band. I mean, just a bunch of different groups.
Is that a part of, you know, when you're doing what you're doing all the time, do you try to take it to the, because you deal a lot with experimental, but you like to remain true to the old. So, you know, is it a natural progression to say we want to take this to the next level? Let's try this and just see.
I love going to the next level. I love, you know, expanding the boundaries. But the reason I love it is because I know where I've been. I know where the past is, and I know where I can go to that same well and go back to the original bluegrass sound of Bill Monroe and Flatt, Scruggs and Stanleys. I know that's where the anchor is for me. I wouldn't, because you can't go forward if you don't know where you've been. I mean, how do you even know you're going forward if you don't know where you've been? Right. So I love the fact of you know, being able to push the boundaries and go forward and create new music and stuff. I mean, I do it all the time with different people that I work with. You know, Jack White from the Raconteurs, and you know, Bruce Hornsby and I have a record coming out next week, and so I love. I mean, Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees was on my latest record, Music to My Ears, and so I love doing compilations with other people and doing projects with other people. But my heart and soul is rooted in this old-time music, you know, and that's the foundations of everything that I build on. If you got a solid foundation, you can build on. You can just keep adding floors, you know, expanding. But if you're built on shaky ground, you know, you know, and that's just the thing I love about this music. It is so rock solid. You know, bluegrass music has a way of bringing all kinds of people to the party. And I think there's a lot of bluegrass fans that say, you know, from different musicians, different genres of music, like, you know, don't come into our thing
Oh,
here.
never the two shall meet, sort of don't,
no.
okay.
A lot of bluegrass fans are that way. I've always been this way, not that way.
Gotcha.
Come on, let's bring your thing in here.
Can we get a close-up on these hands? So I was asking you if you've ever seen those hands move behind one of those instruments.
I asked Mr. Monroe one time, I said, Mr. Bill, why does your mandolin just sound so good? He said, these hands right here.
And he
so
would
I love
say
these,
it just like that.
These hands.
Do you have, I asked you, do you have your hands insured?
No, I
No?
don't. I
No?
don't. I just try to take care of them. You know, I don't use table saws, and I don't, I do some dishes, you know, I help Miss Sharon out, you know, but yeah, you know, we get these little things called calluses, you know, where we play on metal strings, and so you kind of have to build up a little bit of a toughness there on the ends of the fingers. Sure. But and my dad's, they were huge. Where he played, you know, acoustic guitar. I mean, they were big. But you know, I just try to keep them safe. I think my hands do better than my voice. I catch cold. You know, I caught a bad cold up in Canada here a couple of weeks ago,
That's
and
no good.
it's not over it yet. So
that's no good.
I hate having to work, especially starting a book tour now for the next 3 weeks, talking every day.
Well, we're going to talk just a little bit more. We're going to take one more break here on Kentucky Outlook. When we come back, more with Ricky Skaggs. We'll find out about his new book, Kentucky Traveler. Stay with us. Kentucky Outlook continues. I'm Barbara Deeb along with Ricky Skaggs, and we're shooting chickens with the, we were talking about Bill Monroe on your new CD that comes out with Bruce Hornsby. There's a picture of Bill Monroe, and it does look like he's shooting chickens. Yeah,
he's out in the chicken yard, in his chicken lot with his mandolin going like that, and Marty Stewart took the picture, and so that's a Marty Stewart shot.
Even better. Right. You know, you drop these names, and you're coming from a very humble place, but you have worked with some of the most amazing musicians, singers, composers. What a beautiful life. Yeah. But Keith Whitley in particular comes from your hometown.
Yeah, we're close to my hometown. He was in Elliott County, which is Sandy Hook, and I was in Lawrence County.
I want to know what was in the water in those parts.
A lot of sulfur.
Or something.
Yeah.
Makes for good musicians.
Yeah, it does. It does. Keith and his brother was playing in a little band in Easdale, Kentucky, at a fall harvest festival kind of thing in the Easdale High School. And my dad and I was up there playing at the same time.
Okay.
I was playing fiddle and singing with my dad. And so somehow we ended up in the boys' locker room downstairs underneath this little stage, you know, and just the two of us down there. And we were barely 15. I think we just had turned 15. And we started talking about music and talking about who we loved, and, you know, oh, I love the Stanley Brothers. Man, me too, you know, and well, you know this song? And, you know, he starts singing, and I'm singing tenor, and I said, yeah, do you know this one? And so that's how our relationship started, you know, and I invited him over to my house the next weekend, and from that weekend on, for the next probably 3 or 4 years, we were together every weekend, you know,
Wow.
and got to work with Ralph Stanley, you know, in his band for 2.5 years. And as a matter of fact, one of the great meetings with Ralph Stanley, I'd met Ralph with his brother Carter, when I was like 9 years old, and played a couple of shows with them up and down eastern Kentucky there in Prestonsburg, Paintsville, and Olive Hill. And so we had just got together, Keith and I had, and we knew probably 15 or 20 songs. And we went to see Ralph Stanley in Fort Gay, West Virginia, right across from Louisa, Kentucky. And this little beer joint over there, they call them clubs nowadays, but it was a beer joint.
It was a beer
okay,
joint,
yeah.
little dive.
Yeah, right. And so Ralph was playing there, and his bus broke down, and he couldn't get there to the show. And so the club owner said, "Can you boys bring your stringing instruments?" You know, and well, we said, "Yeah, I mean, we got them," you know. And so me and Keith and my dad and Keith's brother got up and sang for about 30 or 40 minutes while Ralph was getting there. And so Ralph walks in and sees these young kids on the stage, 15-year-old, and they're singing the same songs that him and Carter sang when they were 15. And it just blew his mind. He just could not believe it. And instead of going to his dressing room, he pulled up a bar stool and sat there and watched us, and it was like, "Don't look at me, Ralph Stanley,
I know,
you're
he's
my
looking at
hero."
us.
Yeah, he's looking.
Wow.
And but anyway, that night, that's another defining moment. You know, I was telling you about the Bill Monroe thing being a defining moment.
Yes.
This was definitely a defining moment with Ralph Stanley, because he took us out on the road that summer. We worked with him in the summer. We went back to high school, finished high school, and when we graduated, Ralph gave us a job, and we worked then the next 2 years with him on the road as the Clinch Mountain Boys, and had our own bunks in the bus.
You were big time.
We were big time, and had our own
A defining
coach
moment.
that matched Ralph's. You know.
And sad what happened with Keith Whitley, and
Very sad.
but what a beautiful legacy he left.
Yeah.
Your book, now I could talk to you for hours, but you wrote a book, and you've done so many things, you've encountered so many, I mean, my gosh, so you finally decided it's
Yeah.
time to sort of tell my story?
Yeah, it was time. I didn't want to get more forgetful than I already am. So at 59 and the gray hair somehow makes you a little more. But I think that people
Wiser,
forget.
makes you wiser.
Well, people forgive you more when you forget. You know, when you got gray hair. You know, if it was all black, they'd say, "What's wrong with you?" But
And what a
no, it was just
beautiful-
the right time. I mean, I had an offer from a publisher about 10 years ago to do a book, and I don't know. I was either too busy. I just started a record label, Skaggs Family Records, and so I was really, really busy. Not that I haven't been busy now, but I mean, it took over 2 years to write this book. And probably if I didn't have anything else to do in my life, I could have probably sat down in 6 to 9 months. I could have probably turned this out. But honestly, it took 2 years, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, just because I put together television shows. I've put together, Grammy Award-winning albums and all kind of stuff like that. It's not hard. I mean, it's something I love to do, and I know how to do it. This was something I did not know how to do, and this really stretched me a lot. I'm glad I did it, but it was a stretcher.
Labor of love?
Labor of love, a lot of tears,
Yeah.
a lot of tears. Just going back, and someone asked me the other day, when you got to the end of the book, what was, did you find out something that, that really surprised you,
Eye-opening, yeah.
And I said, well, just how much my mom and dad played a role in my life. My mother taught me about Jesus. She taught me how to love him, how to pray, and how to believe the Word, the Bible, as being the Word of God, the truth. And my dad was a Christian, but he walked it out. He lived it. He didn't wear it on his shoulders,
Right.
His shirt sleeves. And he was a great man, served the community, took care of people, helped people, and but taught me so much about music. And he was so instrumental in getting these old-time musicians around me, where I could get around them and learn from these elders, these old fathers of the music, fiddle players, banjo players. And so for that, I'm eternally grateful to my mom and dad. What a blessing they were to grow up with.
What do you have yet? You know, you got a new CD coming out. You have a family, the Skaggs family record. I mean,
yeah.
you got a record label. What's to do? What's out there?
Well, Sharon and I are working on my wife.
Sharon, your wife.
Yeah, we've been
Sharon
married
White.
32 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so in 1987, we won Duo of the Year with Love Can't Ever Get Better Than This for the CMA. And, you know, she was on Warner Curb label, and I was on CBS Epic. Sony had just bought that. And they were arch rivals with each other, Sony and, you know,
Sure.
and Warner Curb. And they didn't want to share their artists, so, you know, we wanted to you know, here we have a duet of the year. We should take advantage of that and do, you know, do a record, you know. Well, we didn't get to, and it was really a letdown, I think, for both our hearts, you know. But we have now, you know, when you have your own label, you can kind of call your own shots, which is really nice. I love that. But anyway, we're doing a duet record now, and we have 5 songs cut so far, and we're going to have a new record out next year. Plus, we got, you know, the Hornsby thing. It's coming
that's
out
pretty
this
exciting. I
month,
was going to
yeah.
have you read a quote here at the end of your book, but we're just about out of time. So when people think about Ricky Skaggs, you know, legendary bluegrass, country, what do you want them to think when they say that name, Ricky Skaggs?
Oh, wow. That's hard. You know, I guess, you know, I guess on my tombstone, I want "Return to Sender" written on there. That's a song. It's on a record that I did called Mosaic, a gospel record, and that's where I want to go. I want to go back to where I came from.
I love that.
So yeah, and not Elvis's "Return to Sender," not that one.
Yeah, let's make sure they get the right Return to Sender.
That's right.
It's been a pleasure.
Great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Barbara.
We've been talking with the legendary Ricky Skaggs. That's
Just
going to
the hair.
that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb. We're glad you joined us.